there was just glass and smashing glass and stuff going on everywhere, and when I looked out, the place was all alight.
Equine influenza has already cost the horse industry and related businesses millions of dollars, but according to the state government, we're now in the home stretch. No new cases have been reported since December 21, but the crisis is far from over. Applications for first-round vaccinations close tomorrow. Owners of horses in the purple zone that have not contracted EI need to contact their vet immediately to arrange treatment. It's hoped first-round vaccinations will wrap up by February 3rd. From the 4th of February, only horses that have been vaccinated or have documents to prove they have recovered from EI will be permitted to move within the purple zone. Meanwhile, applications for assistance for people and businesses suffering financial losses as a result of the horse flu have until February 8 to lodge a claim. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The last event on the ALPG Pro-Am Series, no one could beat Vicky Thomas for the overall title, but the race for individual honours was still on at Branxton. Sarah Kemp plies her trade in America for most of the year, but ran into a bit of trouble on the first. Losing one, then a wayward putter also cost her 3 strokes and a share of second. She got one back on the very next hole. Overnight leader Frances Bondad didn't get the sort of start she was after either. Finding trouble on 2, she was in damage control from then on. Tamara Beckett was moving the right way. The defending champion giving her title defence every chance, with approach shots like this, setting up an eagle chance on 3. She settled for birdie, but was a joint leader halfway round at 7 under. The Lake Macquarie Ladies Amateur at Belmont Golf Club is the breeding ground for future professionals. And while Stephanie Nah looks certain to have a bright future when she joins those ranks, it was Tamworth's Julia Boland's day in the sun. A joint leader on this day last year, Boland didn't let this chance slip away, with some excellent play around the greens, helping her to a birdie start. Eventually carding a 2 under par final round of 71, she claimed the title by 3 strokes. It was a disappointing finish for Nah, while Rebecca Flood was one of 2 players in a share for third.
I'm just an Aussie balladeer.
Laurie McKenna told his charges before the game to forget about a big win, just make sure you get the 3 points. But with goal difference likely to decide the minor premiership, the Mariners attacked from the opening whistle. To the frustration of almost 10,000 fans who braved the wet, shots on target were hard to find. Millie Jedinak with the first genuine chance. The Phoenix were chasing a win of their own to avoid the wooden spoon, but their radar was no better. Socceroos coach Pim Verbeek sat high and dry, and that's where most of the Mariners' attempts on goal ended up. Matt Simon and Tom Pondliak both off target. After almost being substituted at half-time because of an injury concern, the Mariners' honorary captain did what he does best after the break. The men in yellow protected their one-goal advantage until deep into stoppage time before Adam Kwasnick finally wrapped up the points, much to the delight of the manager. The Mariners' semi-final opponents will be decided by 9 o'clock tonight. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The postnatal ward at John Hunter Hospital is always brimming with new deliveries, and Sarah Broderick, Dr. Sarah Broderick, is the latest. Her mother, a midwife, Sarah, who clearly has the touch, wants to specialise in the same area and is one of 79 interns to start work today in our public hospitals.
Finally having some responsibility and being able to do the things that we've seen, the seniors above us doing for so many years.
Dr. Coach is from Botswana and has studied here for the past 6 years, but no amount of theory could prepare the 27-year-old for life in the public health system.
You know, they tell you, they warn you, they say it's going to be busy, but you never really get the feel of it until you're really in the mix of it.
It's a tough transition from medical school into the medical workforce and becoming a doctor and treating patients.
The interns will rotate between hospitals within the Hunter New England Health Network, a mix of metropolitan and rural training over a 2-year period. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Mother Nature's dumped 90 millimetres on the Tyrrell's estate since Wednesday night. The berries are big, juicy and many varieties are ready to be picked. But winemakers decided to hold off on harvesting today because the area between the vines is a muddy mess.
We really could do with some fine weather for the next 3 or 4 weeks to just dry the vines out, hold any mould or mildew that may come and just let them ripen normally.
These misty conditions can actually pose more of a threat than driving rain. The moisture sits on the leaf and causes it to rot, and that can actually spoil the fruit. Over at Braymore Wines, they decided to hedge their bets by getting a percentage of the crop in, starting with Semillon.
Green, clean fruit is better than, overripe, mouldy fruit.
While at McWilliams Mount Pleasant Estate, crushing is well underway. Rain during the growing season has really filled the bunches out, and winemakers are looking forward to big yields and a quality end result.
This year, the cooler weather we've had, this is a Semillon, and lovely aromas of herbaceousness and lime, so it's going to be a pretty smart wine.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Melbourne, Norfolk Island, Brisbane and as of next month, Tamworth will be the latest destination out of Newcastle Airport. Aero Pelican has started taking bookings for its northwest service with growing ties between the two centres since the formation of Hunter New England Health.
We conducted a survey through the service and the response was excellent.
Aero Pelican has purchased 3 19-seater turboprop aircraft to help service the new route on Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Fridays, providing an alternative to Sydney to link with low-cost carriers.
That will increase over time, particularly as more operators come here with greater destinations.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
A modest former miner's cottage surrounded by so-called Merryweather mansions. John Murray, his brother and sister bought the family home from their mother 20 years ago to help clear her debts. They didn't see the land tax spectre looming.
We didn't know that the house had gone over the threshold because it's not an expensive house. It was just the area where it is suddenly went crazy.
A few years ago, John received a land tax bill, backdated, and it's since been mounting as he's fought the government to now total $17,000. He's been to court and has lobbied politicians for an exemption without success.
We were told that no changes could be made because there were so many people in the same circumstance.
John says his family's story should serve as a cautionary tale to others, but he's also urging the government to review land tax laws.
If it was a profit-making property, well, fair enough, tax has to be paid, but not when you're actually running at a loss and you're looking after elderly people.
John has conceded he will have to pay the bill, with land tax continuing to mount on the property at $50 a week.
It was a Sunday night like no other for the Newcastle Jets as they waited anxiously on other results before learning their fate.
Moments there I couldn't watch the game because of it was just frustrating,
But when Sydney stumbled and Queensland crumbled, Newcastle had booked a major semi-final home and away series with the Mariners.
We made the top 4 last year. We got knocked out in the preliminary final, and there's a real feeling with a group that there's some unfinished business.
Even if they earned the right, Newcastle could still lose the grand final to a Sydney venue. Today, in the state capital, the coach was stressing the importance of the home ground advantage.
We need to win the first game. We're at home, we have to take the ascendancy, and we need to win that game. We don't want to be going to Blue Tongue to try and get a result.
The Jets boast a proud record against their local rivals, unbeaten in 2 years. After a stop-start season, the team's recent form has given plenty of reasons to smile.
3 wins on the trot, going into the finals, couldn't ask for anything better.
While his teammates got back to business at training this morning, the short-price favourite for the A-League's Player of the Year was mentally right there with them.
Yeah, I have had a good season, but, I want to keep on going. We've got semi-finals coming up.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. He's been here before as a player, but today Tony Smith inspected the upgraded Newcastle Stadium as the England coach, and he says he likes what he sees. The ground will host one of the tournament's most important games when England faces New Zealand on November 8.
It's always great to play here. You always get great, passionate crowds, and that'll be the same again.
Smith says this whirlwind visit to several venues around Australia is all part of a very thorough preparation.
Just making sure that everything fits in place so there's no surprises when we get here, and we're taking it very seriously. We'd like to do as well as we could in the World Cup.
With his brother Brian in charge of the Newcastle Knights, is Tony planning any long-distance calls to gather inside information?
Yeah. We talk a lot, but it's usually regarding family issues rather than rugby league.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. After starting the day at 5 under, defending champion Francis Bondad simply needed to par the last to force a three-way playoff. But a wayward tee shot, a misjudged approach and a nervous putt saw her drop to 4th. Virtually out of contention earlier in the day, Sydney's Sarah O fired 3 birdies and an eagle on the final 4 holes to finish equal leader. She was joined in a playoff by consistent Kiwi Lynn Brookie. Facing putts from a similar distance, both girls were off target. A similar story on the second playoff hole with neither landing a killer blow. But it was third time lucky as Sarah O knocked in this birdie to claim the title. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Charlestown may never quite be the same. A master plan which Lake Macquarie City Council last night recommended for adoption could see the city change dramatically. Amongst the first to be altered is Charlestown Mall, which will be reopened to traffic within 2 years to complement the redevelopment of Charlestown Square.
So we will have certainly buses and taxis moving through there, some private vehicles in a moderated way.
Height limits throughout the city will be drastically altered, with Charlestown South's 4-storey limit being replaced by a proposed 10 to 15-storey limit.
Which would be complementary, if you like, to those buildings that are already under construction to the north of Charlestown.
The plan will also see more cycleways throughout the city, as well as more public transport, but one of the more immediate changes will be at Charlestown Square, with unlimited free parking ending in just a few weeks. Instead, customers will have to pay for parking after 3 hours. GPT, which owns the centre, says the changes are being made to improve customers' experience when they visit the centre by preserving car parking spaces for shoppers. And most shoppers we spoke to today didn't seem to mind.
So as an oldie who is retired, I don't object to the 3 hours.
It won't worry me because I don't park for very long.
Well, I think it sucks because, you're spending money here as it is.
The dire state of Newcastle City Council's budget is no secret. $764 million is needed over the next 20 years just to maintain the city's dilapidated infrastructure. So News, the organisation, is planning to spend around $1 million by hiring 10 strategists, has attracted some criticism.
We've put rates up 9.9% this financial year. Now they know where their money's been wasted.
Councillor Aaron Buman believes a freeze should be put on employing expensive new staff, at least until council gets a new general manager.
The poor old ratepayer of Newcastle gets screwed over every time with this council.
But the Mayor says the council has no choice but to hire the strategists.
These positions are needed as a result of government legislation, but what should be understood, the total number of staff employed is not increasing, they're replacement positions.
The staff will create strategies for things like future floods, coastline and stormwater management, and according to the Mayor, the 10 positions were approved and budgeted for back in June.
And I think it's not good form for councillors to be making statements when they're ill-informed or misrepresenting the situation.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
I guess from a peak demand point of view, it is necessary, and obviously with our future growth and demand coming along this year, what we'll see is that will be very much a necessary piece of infrastructure.
The end of a competitive 5-stage recruitment process, today's ceremony was a proud occasion for these 19 Hunter, Central and North Coast cadets.
They have proven themselves academically, also in their sporting prowess, and they must also show us that they have the ability to lead, manage and look after soldiers, sailors and airmen.
It's like the culmination of all the efforts to get in and all of the paranoia that you're about to fail or that they're going to say, no, we don't want you. So it's really just to say, yay, I made it.
Tomorrow they head to Canberra to start their careers in the Royal Australian Defence and Air Forces, studying fields such as intelligence, logistics, engineering and aviation. Each cadet has their own reasons for joining the force. For Newcastle's Ben Jordan, it was in his blood. His father and grandfather both served.
Ever since then I've sort of been leaning towards that. I've liked taking on leadership roles. I like to help people with any troubles they might have.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
If you did a straw poll around, especially the Hunter Valley at the moment, you'd find it's between 78 and 85% of the people are saying do not privatise electricity.
He's a footballer who's never lacked passion, but in the past that passion has landed Joel Griffiths in trouble. Now the striker has given his brother Adam plenty of credit for his impressive season.
Being around him at home and on the park, he's always in my ear, just saying, just relax, don't lose your head, things like that. So he's the good twin, and I'm happy that he's here.
Both players are currently in camp with the Socceroos, but it's Adam's return from suspension for the major semi that has Joel excited.
Yeah, I think we missed Adam in the middle of the park. He just tends to win a lot of duels in there.
Meanwhile, Newcastle fans have started an online petition to try and keep the grand final in the Hunter if the Jets earn hosting rights. Late this afternoon, more than 90% of supporters were in favour of keeping the game at Energy Australia Stadium. Just an hour down the road, Mariners manager Laurie McKinnon says he's more worried about the thousands of fans who would miss out if the match was played in Gosford or Newcastle. He believes the Olympic Stadium in Sydney is the fairest venue.
They've played there once, you know, the David Beckham game, but no, definitely I would, if it was going to be in Sydney against Sydney, playing a neutral venue, ANZ Stadium would be fine with me.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. With state government funding of around $150,000 a year secured until 2010, officials are looking to make Surfest about more than boards and barrels.
We want to broaden the whole appeal for it and especially make that final weekend a hunter experience where there'll be food and wine festivals, an entertainment program and eventually a concert in the vineyard, so people will come here to experience what the hunter has and see Merewether Beach showcasing the Mark Richards Pro.
This year's Surfest could include both the women's and men's world champions, with Stephanie Gilmore and Mick Fanning both expressing interest. While the competition was rescheduled to accommodate Fanning's wedding, other timing issues have also been avoided. Unlike last year, spectators won't be forced to choose between Surfest and a Knights home game.
Newcastle Knights have been very cooperative with us and working with the National Rugby League, and we're seeing they'll be away at Auckland for that weekend, and hopefully they get a win there and we all have a great weekend here.
And if organisers have their way, Mark Richards himself will be seen at Merewether all year round. They believe Australia's greatest ever surfer is the perfect ambassador for the region. They're starting a campaign to have the four-time world champ immortalised with a statue, possibly to be incorporated into the redevelopment of Surf House. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
When the Pasha Bulker became stranded off Nobby's Beach in June, the head of the Port Corporation worked around the clock and earned the reputation as the glue which held the operation together. At today's Australia Day Awards ceremony, Gary Webb was thanked for his direction during the ship's recovery and for ensuring the safety of everybody involved.
Gary was able to give a sense of calmness during that time, a sense of purpose and a sense of confidence.
That just became the natural response. If that's been recognised and for the team that was part of it, then I'm enormously humbled and proud today.
Also recognised today as the Young Citizen of the Year was Callan Nickerson. Callan has contributed to the community through his sporting achievements and this year became the first Aboriginal captain of Newcastle High School.
He's a young person with a bright future, and I think if he exemplifies what youth, young people stand for, we've got a great future.
The Wallsend Winter Carnival, which went ahead despite extensive flood damage in the town, was named Event of the Year. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
Mum and Dad are living every parent's nightmare, losing one of their children. On the day of the accident, both Mum and Dad were fearful that they'd lost 3 sons in the explosion. Their pain and suffering at the loss of Trevor cannot be put in words. Our condolences are extended to Eddie Orgo's family, particularly his wife Nadia, his workmates and friends. Words cannot express how sorry we are for their loss. Our thoughts are also extended to our staff, many of whom were on site at the time of the accident. With their devoted assistance, we will rebuild bigger and stronger than ever. We are also moved by the many offers of help and assistance to rebuild and move forward from within the wine industry and tourism industry. Such offers are so numerous that we will not be able to accept all of them. However, we will be forever thankful for such generosity.
The funeral for Trevor Drayton will be held tomorrow at St Joseph's Church at Cessnock, while Eddie Orgo will be farewelled in Kurri Kurri on Friday.
His mode of operation was simple. Enter a financial institution, hand the teller a note claiming to be armed and demanding money, then grab the cash and leave. Police claim 38-year-old John Hullen from Merriweather did just that on at least 2 and possibly 4 occasions recently. This footage allegedly shows the accused stealing $2,000 from the Newcastle Permanent Building Society at Belmont on the 7th of January. 4 days earlier, police claim he hit the Companion Credit Union at East Maitland, where he escaped with $5,000. Hullen is also accused of robbing the Newcastle Permanent Building Society at Tuggerah of $8,595 on the 14th of January. Then, 2 days ago, he allegedly targeted the Newcastle Permanent Building Society again, this time at Swansea, and stealing $1,000. Police arrested Hullen yesterday and charged him with 4 counts of robbery. Today he appeared before Newcastle Local Court where he was refused bail and his case adjourned to the 2nd of April. Madeline Bond, NBN News. Dredging work for Newcastle's 3rd coal loader has begun, with land-based activities expected to start within the week.
First job is to put a good fence around it, and then after that we move in and start compacting the area.
The $1 billion project is expected to generate around 1,000 local jobs during its construction phase, and once complete will do much more than help coal companies export their product in a more timely fashion.
It enables us to build the new mines in the various parts of regional and rural New South Wales.
During its first year of operation, at least 30 million tonnes of coal will be shipped through the terminal.
And then, of course, this is only stage 1. We haven't yet made any decisions about stage 2 and 3, but we have all the approvals to go up to over 60 million tonnes.
There's a lot to like about the way James Holland has handled his meteoric rise in the game. With only 7 A-League appearances to his credit, his Socceroos selection has everyone talking. But the teenager is just as keen on the arrival of his first car tomorrow.
Sick of borrowing my mum's car, to be honest.
Adam Griffiths has watched both his brothers don the green and gold and is one step away from rounding out a family trifecta alongside his twin Joel.
I've still got a little way to go, get on the field first and we'll wait and see really.
Ante Kovic, captain Jade North, along with 2 of the club's Olyroos, round out those in Socceroos' frame. But tomorrow it's a return to work with their club team and that major semi-final series.
We need to A, win the game, which is first and foremost, and then obviously B, win it by as much as we can.
And it's not like there isn't enough support for the Jets' cause. Van Egmond sharing time with the city's other national team coach, Brian Smith, today. As fans queued out the doors at ticketing venues. They had to. Computer systems couldn't cope with demand for a period this morning, but by lunchtime ticket sales had already passed 14,000, with the match heading quickly towards a sellout. It's providing the club with even more incentive to stand its ground on the potential relocation of the grand final venue to Sydney. Newcastle must win its 2-match semi-final series, though, before that becomes a genuine issue. Bursting onto the scene as a teenager, Terence Siu admits he wasn't ready for the life of an NRL player. Not that he couldn't hold his own on field, it was off field where he found trouble.
Made a few mistakes and I learned from them. It took me a bit, but I learned from them.
And he needs to. 2 late-night off-field incidents last year, the latter leading to allegations of assault, which he'll face at Newcastle Court early next month, almost saw his contract torn up.
It was a massive wake-up call. Something I thought was so small was so big, and then I sort of realised how big it was and how big of a part we do play in this community.
He needs to learn very quickly that he's just about out of chances.
Brian Smith, along with senior players, have spent time not just expressing that point to the talented 20-year-old, but reminding him of the huge opportunity which is at stake. Captain and incumbent number 9, Danny Badiris, is off contract at the end of the season. But whether he leaves then or down the track, Siu has the time to build a case as a long-term successor. It's first things first, though, and that's the NRL Rookies Camp in Sydney, where young players are lectured on how to handle themselves in the game spotlight. Siu might just have those bases covered in lessons already hard-learned. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
A devastated Caroline and Max Drayton leaned on family members for emotional support as they prepared to farewell their 52-year-old son Trevor this morning. The winemaker's funeral attracted around 1,200 mourners and the attention of the national media. Those who couldn't fit inside St Joseph's Cathedral listened to the ceremony outside. Longtime friend and politician Joel Fitzgibbon spoke on behalf of the family about Trevor's younger years and his close relationship with older brother John.
Their most infamous feat was when they decided that Max's pride and joy, his black Chevy, needed a colour change. They chose a nice white colour.
While vigneron Bruce Tyrrell gave an account of his character.
He was someone at whom it was impossible to yell. He was simply too nice, too decent a person. And I describe him simply as a great bloke that I trusted implicitly.
And Trevor's niece Natalie struggled through a heartfelt poem.
I love you, Uncle Trevor. Forever you'll be in my heart.
The 2-hour ceremony ended in an outpouring of grief and a teary farewell to one of the Hunter's best-loved winemakers. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The power industry privatisation model struck a nerve with community groups ever since the package was made public. And they did, 700 of them, at a forum organised largely by unions. Last night's gathering heard why the state shouldn't be selling its retail electricity arms, fearing private enterprise would realise its investment through job cuts and price hikes.
Workers in fixing up wires and poles and substations are totally unaffected.
During the election it was never mentioned, so this government has no mandate to even talk about privatisation of electricity.
At the forum, the group, which included 4 local Labor MPs, voted unanimously to form a lobby group called Stop the Sell-Off Hunter Committee. The state government says the union's campaign is riddled with untruths.
We're not selling any of our electricity assets or our infrastructure. We're retaining ownership of 100%, the lot.
The Hunter Business Chamber is already planning to spend some of the proceeds from the expected $15 billion sale of retail operations, including Country Energy and Energy Australia.
The Hunter Business Chamber has had a project on the books for a while now for a sustainable energy research centre.
Details of the so-called generous package for the Hunter are yet to be released. Adam McIlwright, NBN News. It was a brief visit to Belmont for David Campbell, but one worth around $100,000 to Lake Macquarie Police. That's how much its new mobile command post is worth, with another earmarked for Newcastle.
Where we've got a siege or a major incident, emergency management incidents, as well as we might do search warrants, any time where we would have the police at a location for a couple of hours or more, we can use the command post and have the resources at hand.
Perhaps they could use one at Beresfield. Its station remains unmanned, and neighbourhood groups have laid blame squarely on the police minister.
It's not for me to demand that the local area commander have officers sitting in a particular police station when he thinks they would be better used out on the streets.
Lower Hunter boss Des Organ echoed the police minister's comments and this afternoon ruled out returning officers to Beresfield for now. Both have also denied the issues caused a rift. Adam McIlwright, NBN News.
It was the very saga which threatened to derail a premiership bid, but ironically that distraction has left on the eve of the finals campaign. Signed by club owner Con Constantine in much fanfare, He directed coach Gary Van Egmond to play the former great against his wishes. It led to a tense period between the two before it was clear late last year the 34-year-old Brazilian simply was no longer up to it. The club would rather concentrate on clearing Korean international Song in time for the finals and are waiting on clarification from the Department of Immigration on his working visa. As for the Mariners, they're taking no chances on Socceroo striker John Aloisi and his injured knee, hinting they may even wait until Saturday to test him out.
John will just be taking it easy the rest of the week. We'll not look for him to train to probably Friday or Saturday, and we're fine that we just nurse him through the rest of the week.
Newcastle Jets keeper Ante Kovic will be waiting. He was heavily worked today in preparation for the pending Mariners attack on Sunday. Belmont was back to its beautiful best today after days of ordinary weather and just in time for the opening round of the International Amateur. England's Matthew Cryer was loving it. Chased by poor weather from the mother country, he's been unable to play a 4-round event since early November.
I'm pleased that I've got an opportunity to top up my tan as well as play a bit of golf.
Not that it's hurt his game. He won the Avondale Medal in Sydney on Saturday, while his English teammate Gary Wolstenholme claimed the Lakes Trophy on Sunday, and both are aiming for a big year ahead.
Like a lot of the top amateurs from all nationalities are working towards the Eisenhower Trophy. For us, we also have the St Andrews Trophy, which is GB&I versus Europe.
Australian amateur champion Rowan Blizzard teed off for what's shaping as his last event here. With designs on turning professional at the year's end, he wants to leave with the trophy.
Probably expecting myself to go a bit better over the last couple of years. I think it's more of a pressure thing, just got to try and relax out there and just let you play a natural game and hopefully things work out.
Detectives and forensic police scoured the Patterson Road home for any trace of evidence left behind by the cowardly criminal.
About 8 a.m. this morning, a male person has forced entry into the premises here at Largs by knife point.
The thief then used a rope to tie up a 71-year-old woman inside and stole a large amount of cash and jewellery before fleeing on foot. The woman eventually escaped and sought help at the nearby Maitland retirement village. Police believe the suspect may have had prior knowledge of what valuables were inside the home and now want help from the public to catch the criminal. He's described as being of Caucasian appearance, in his mid-20s and of slim build. He was wearing a dark jacket and jeans. Madeline Bond, NBN News. It's a repeat of this sort of behaviour police want to avoid. Both Jets and Mariners fans have been warned to behave at Sunday's match in Energy Australia Stadium.
We won't tolerate any missiles being thrown, we won't tolerate any assaults, we won't tolerate any trouble between the spectators.
With 25,000 people tipped to attend the match, fans are urged to catch public transport to and from the game.
And we'll be putting on an extra train to get people home. So once the train at Broadmeadows Station is full, we'll have another train that will come in, and we're also rostering on extra staff.
And team spirit is certainly alive in Newcastle.
People are really fired up, and the other day I just went to pick up my daughter at the daycare and they got Go Jets all over the place.
Limited tickets remain to the hotly contested match, with the house full sign expected to go up by tomorrow afternoon. But even if Newcastle wins this major semi-final series, they won't get to host the grand final. The FFA today confirming the season decider will be played at one of two venues in Sydney. While disappointed, the Jets coach says he doesn't want the issue to further distract his team.
It can be played at Melbourne, it can be played at Energy Australia, it can be played in Sydney, it can be played on the Moon. If we get to the grand final, we'll be there boots and all.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
West Wallsend and its surrounds have been identified as a growth area in the Hunter, a $37 million shopping precinct at Cameron Park, the latest development proposal for the area. West Wallsend businesses see the development boom as an opportunity to strengthen the town, and this will be the focus of the newly formed Chamber of Commerce.
Our aim would be to make sure that that the unique character of West Wallsend and the nature of the small businesses and their strengths is not swamped in a development like that, and that they can coexist.
The Chamber says it will follow in the footsteps of places like Morpeth and Toronto and capitalise on the old mining town's unique history and character.
The key thing about that is the presentation of the business precinct to start with, limiting the amount of graffiti, that enhancing the footpaths and the amenities so that it's more comfortable for people to come here.
25 businesses from West Wallsend, Cameron Park and Holmesville have joined the Chamber. It will meet once a month. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News. Most people associate arthritis with adults, but children are also diagnosed with the disease, and 6-year-old Caitlin and 5-year-old Bailey are among them. Both children have come a long way since they were first diagnosed. Caitlin no longer needs a wheelchair, thanks to a new drug and the benefits of hydrotherapy. However, a lack of information, support and funding for juvenile arthritis means many more children are suffering unnecessarily. Hunter-based group Kids Get Arthritis Too is trying to change that.
It's actually far more common than other diseases that have a lot more awareness and have a lot more research funding and a lot more political sway. And we want that kind of success.
Everyone should know that it's not just an old people's disease, it is for little kids. Like, I didn't realise that Caitlin would ever get something like that.
The group's latest venture is Camp Twinkletoes, a week-long camp on the Central Coast for sufferers under the age of 8 or the newly diagnosed.
Even though the statistics are something like 1 child in 250, realistically that's 1 child in every school or in every suburb, but it's still just 1 child in a couple of hundred. So if you get all the kids together, they're not alone.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
If conditions for low scoring on day one were good, then a benign Belmont lay open for the taking for much of today, and Danny Lee made sure he cashed in. Starting the day 6 under, the 17-year-old Kiwi took a while to get started, but by the back nine, he was back to his best. This approach setting up an eagle chance on 16. He settled for birdie, but considering he's won 6 of his last 7 tournaments, New Zealand's #1 amateur is on track to add another title to the list.
Working on my swing at the moment. It works really good at the moment. I think that's the reason I can play this low.
A birdie at 17 moved him to 11 under for the tournament, and had this dropped on the last, he would have carded back-to-back rounds of 66. There was hot scoring all over the place. Matthew Cryer fired off 6 successive birdies at one stage, and the Englishman added another at 16 as he made up for a disappointing start to the tournament. And how about this to end your day? Australian squad member Tim Stewart finishing a solid second round with a chip-in birdie on the last. He's impressed since arriving and has agreed to play here for the next 2 years. However, difficulties in obtaining the correct visa from immigration has stifled plans to rush Korean international Song into the squad for Sunday's match. Of a more immediate concern, Andrew Durante was unable to complete today's session as the defender struggles with a calf muscle injury, and the coach is already planning to start without him.
Okay, we might miss him for this first game, but with the week off in between, gives him enough time to ensure that he gets enough recovery for the rest of the final series.
The Mariners have their own concerns, with Socceroos striker John Aloisi troubled by a knee problem. But fit or not, Ante Kovic will be waiting.
We've played them twice now and he hasn't managed to bang one away from us, so I just want to keep that going.
The big gloveman is happy to stoke the fire even further for this all-important derby, given the Mariners have beaten Newcastle just twice, and that last victory was almost 2 years ago.
We have got the upper hand on them, and that'll probably be playing in their mind. And I think we played 2 different styles of football, so I'm happy with the way the draws come up.
Trying to avoid the taunting, the Mariners arrive in enemy territory tomorrow.
We don't really care, you know. We're playing them and looking forward to the game, you know. I don't think anybody's an easy game, so I don't think it matters what other 3 teams we get. You're going to have to beat them to get to grand final.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. The season opener started well enough for the home side, with the Hunter Hurricanes going shot for shot with Brisbane. But as the game went longer, the Barracudas got better and their big guns began finding range. Hunter could ill afford to miss any opportunity, as Brisbane made the home side pay at the other end. It was only 9-6 at the finish, but Hunter gets the chance to gain revenge in tonight's rematch. The City of Newcastle Open Tennis Championship kicked off today at the District Park Complex. With valuable Australian ranking points on the line, the fields are strong across all divisions, with 260 players entering. Women's number 1 seed Cassandra Chan started her title defence well against Dale McKenna. The Sydney side are wrapping up her opening match in straight sets, 6-1, 6-1. Rain late today, forcing organisers to hastily organise a redraw for the weekend rounds, the final still set down for Sunday.